This is my August reading recap. I read 8 books in the month of August, which is pretty great. I read a ton in translation because it was Women in Translation Month. And I did just dig into books that are translated and written by women. I have some older books. I have some newer books, some like contemporary translated stuff. I have one nonfiction. I have one from the Booker Prize, which is not written by women or translated, but one that it was a library hold that came in. Um, and yeah, there's a lot to get through, so let's get into it. Okay, first thing I read, I started in July and then I finished it in August, is Flesh by David Soleil, which is on the Booker Prize long list. And it's a book about masculinity. Uh, Kind of if I boil it down. It's a book that tracks one man's life from when he's really young and something like kind of wild happens and something pretty traumatic happens. And then it's like him later on in life dealing with issues of class, issues of manhood, parenthood, him in relation to women, him in relation to partners, that sort of stuff. Really, really interesting. Um, and it's like all of these snapshots of his life throughout time. And they're all like little vignettes that almost read as short stories, which is a kind of like novel construction that I really, really love. And so I really liked it, but it's written in a way like intentionally cold, intentionally distant, really matter of fact, really straightforward, which is not bad, but for some reason it made it seem like this book was missing a little bit of heart, a little bit of soul, and that coldness. Like, yeah, I didn't love it because of that coldness, if that makes sense. But it made sense in what it was doing and why it was written in this way. But um, I still enjoyed it. I thought the writing was really great, and I liked what it had to say about masculinity and men today, especially this man's story. It was really, really interesting, but I wish it wasn't so cold, is kind of the gist of my review. On the Calculation of Volume 1 by Solveig Ballet, translated by Barbara Havland, is incredible. And I was surprised at how much I really, really enjoyed this. I've heard amazing things, but it's a book about a woman living the same day over and over again. And I was like, how good can that be? And also, how is that going to last 7 books? Because this is supposed to be 7 volumes of this. And like I get it. I want more. I'm really excited to read the second one from this, but essentially, yes, she lives the same day over and over and over again. Um, it talks about temporality and like the temporary nature of existence and like people. She's in this weird state where she's sort of there, sort of not there. She kind of has an impact, kind of doesn't. Her days are shaped by decisions she makes, and then sometimes they're not. And there's really no rhyme or reason to it, which is so frustrating and so lonely. The coldness that comes through from her loneliness and her just kind of going about her days, being distant from people and things and her life, even though she's in it. So incredible. So well done. I'm still gagged. This was really, really great. It is really small. How many pages is this? This is like 150 pages. But somehow it like flew by, felt like 20. And again, like it's the same day over and over. It's the craft is, I am just in awe. So I'm really excited to read the second one. And yeah, I want all 7 like right now. Waist Deep by Linnea Maya Ernst, translated by Sherilyn Nicolette Helberg, is really interesting because I didn't love it. And mostly I didn't love it because I am disappointed it did not live up to the premise, the promise of the premise. It didn't live up to what I think it could have been because I think it was so close. Essentially, it's about a group of friends that have been friends for a really, really long time, and they're reconnecting after they haven't really disconnected, but it's like, friends kind of grow apart, but like only slightly. They still have a group chat. Some of them still see each other, that kind of thing. And they're in a cabin in the woods for 1 week, and like things happen. Okay, there's a lot of queerness, there's a lot of sexuality, there's a lot of bodies, there's a lot of like identity stuff. It's really, really interesting, but we like barely scratch the surface on any of it, in my opinion, and we jump from person to person so quickly, and we fly through people's storylines. Wow, the light is really changing. So again, like, I think it had a lot of potential because the setting is insane. The characters are really cool. The like dynamics that were happening were really interesting, but I feel like then we would move on really quickly and we would only get like a tiny little glimpse, like a little look around the corner at something. We wouldn't like face it head on, and that's what I wanted more of. So that's why I didn't love it, although I think it'll work for a lot of other people. In fact, I like told a bunch of people about this book because I think a lot of people will like it. I just felt like something was missing for me um because I think it could have been great, and that's disappointing. Greek Lessons by Hong Kong, translated by Deborah Smith and Emily A. Wan, is my fourth Hong Kong of the year and fourth installment of my year with Hong Kong. I'm reading all five of the novels that have been translated into English, and this one was really, really cool. It's essentially about a woman who has lost her ability to speak, and this has happened to her in the past, and you kind of like figure that out later. And she's taking Greek lessons from a professor who's losing his sight, and then you kind of get both their backstories, and then they sort of start to mix. On her side, you realize that she's gone through some really traumatic things. She's lost her ability to speak in the past, but got it back from learning a new language. And then on his side, you realize that he has been losing his sight for a really long time, ever since he was a child. So his entire life has essentially been grieving this thing that he knew was going to happen, the world as he sees it, the world as he is experiencing it. This book is about like human connection. It's about different ways that people can communicate and the like lengths people will go to communicate um, and connect. I thought that was really beautiful. And what was really cool about this book is that both of the storylines start to blend at some point. So it starts off like a really linear narrative and you're following and it's like gorgeous. And then things start getting like messy and muddled and really like kooky, experimental, kind of really fun in a way that I love. Dreamlike, slippery, hard to hold on to. Um, and so this book reminded me of The White Book, which is another Hong Kong book, in that way. But then it also feels like it has like hints of the vegetarian and what it's saying about people and connection and power and all sorts of dynamics. And it's just really interesting. Hong Kong has a lot to say. And I really love this. I'm going to do a full video on my year with Hong Kong at some point when I'm done with my year of Hong Kong. But this one is great. Will it be up there? I don't know, because I feel like there was something left on the bone narratively. Like I think there was some meat there. We went to the marrow, but I felt like there was some meat to get through before there, if that makes sense. But I still really enjoyed it. Abigail by Magda Szabo, translated by Len Ricks, is a book from the 70s, in a way that like this feels like it could have been written today. So that's really cool. There's no dust on this book. It is like fresh and feels really contemporary. It's about a spoiled teenager living in Hungary. She in right around the time of World War II. She is going to the opera. She has like access to a lot of adults. Adults talk to her like a person, like all of those things. And it feels really special to her. And then at some point, her army general father decides to send her to a like remote boarding school in the middle of nowhere because she'll be safe there. And she's not really sure what that means or like what's going on. And then that school is like, there's so many rules. Adults talk to her like she's a child. The people around her aren't very friendly with her. They're all living in their like imaginary worlds. And she sort of looks down on them like they're children. She feels like she's not one of them. And they very much reflect that to her. Felt very like Lord of the Fliesian in that way. And there's a lot of hijinks and there's a lot of things going on. It's very interesting. But what I really loved about this book is that you kind of track her growing up in this novel. And she grows up by understanding what's happening in the world with the war specifically. And like as the novel moves along, it's like these trivial things that are really important to her. And then it just becomes like these really big, important questions and considerations that she has for the world. And so I really, really loved this. The writing was delectable, delicious, just divine. 3Ds, that's fun. Yeah, I really love this. I'm excited to read more from Magda Szabo. I've heard great things, and judging by this, it will not disappoint because she's just so cool and has a lot to say, and I like it. Dead Girls by Selva Almada, translated by Annie McDermott, is unlike anything that I've ever read in a really interesting way. It's part memoir, it's part investigative journalism, It's part true crime. Essentially, it's this woman who's investigating three femicides that happened in the 80s in Argentina, in small towns in Argentina, at a time before femicide was even a word, but violence towards women was very present. And so she's investigating these three unsolved, like no one has been held to task for these three crimes. But as she's doing that, she's like writing these stories. So she's telling you, she's narrating essentially like these things that happened. And then she's talking to you about how she's investigating them. So where she's going, what she's doing, who she's meeting with, communities, connection, and also how violence is still prevalent and how these things have impacted the world around the women who are no longer there. And then she's also giving you her story. So a bit of memoir, a bit of her experience with violence, a bit of her experience with living in Argentina, that reality. So a lot is going on in a way that was like, I was constantly like, it's jarring because you're constantly jumping from one thing to the next. But I liked it. And I'd be curious to read more from Selva Almada because I liked the writing. I just wish it wasn't as choppy is maybe the, like, you know, when you're on a boat and the waves are choppy, that's how this feels. Which isn't bad. And I think that was intentional. Like the intent was that violence permeates the entire story. And that's sort of what came across. And it came across in a really great way. So I still enjoyed it. But yeah, I want to read more from her. This maybe will not be my favorite book of hers. Colony by Annika Norlin, translated by Alice E. Olson, is good. But again, this has to do with the promise of the premise. I think it could have been great, but the construction sort of lacked for me. I think a lot of people will like this book. A lot of people do like this book, and I can see why. For me, it like misses the mark a tiny bit, and so that's why I couldn't love it. And I wish that I loved it because I really, really wanted to. Essentially, it's about a woman who goes on burnout, and then she goes to the woods in Sweden to touch grass, to connect with nature. And when she's there, she stumbles on this group of misfits, this group of people who are all living together, sort of a commune kind of vibe, an alternative lifestyle. And she's like very curious about that. She's drawn to them. And then there's 300 pages of it that is just the backstory of those people, which is really interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's like very cool to know about all these people, what brought them together, how they built this community, what that community feels like, what does sexuality feel like in that community, what are the relationships, what are the dynamics, what does power feel like, how did they find each other, how are they staying together, what's like keeping them to each other, guilt and all of these things. And they're all running from something, which I thought was really interesting. They're all running from themselves, from their future, from the law, from each other. Just really fascinating. However, comma, because of the way the book is constructed, I kept being like, where's the diva? Where's the doll? Where's the girl who at the beginning like stumbles on them? It's like weird. And then you only get back to her at the end and I'm like, well, so because of that, the story is really interesting. The book is really well written. I really liked it. I just wish it was constructed differently. Like I wonder why that decision was made because it feels sort of, it doesn't feel good, if that makes sense. But I really liked it. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I think a lot of people will like this book and I would recommend it to a lot of people. For me, there's just like something off about the construction. But that's just a me thing. That's like a personal preference thing. And look how beautiful the cover is. I just, yeah. My hopes were so high and it didn't quite meet them. I Remember Lights by Ben Ladouceur. Yes, this is a library book. I just finished it. I will be bringing it back as soon as I'm done this video. This is a queer book that talks about queer life in Montreal in the 60s and 70s. The 60s, it surrounds Expo 67, which was like this big worldwide event that happened here. And the 70s is the part in the 70s is about a raid that happened to a gay bar here in Montreal. And so we basically track this like unnamed narrator's experience of being gay in this city at those times, which I thought was fascinating. As someone who's lived here my entire life, this is part of history that I do know, but it was really cool to get like a deeper understanding of it in this way. Expo 67 is just so fascinating to me that it happened here because I feel like this is such a small town. In my mind, Montreal is such a small town, but maybe it isn't, whatever. But Expo 67 really shaped the way that Montreal would end up looking like now, who makes the city what it is, the people that came here, stayed here, the people that were visiting, all that sort of stuff. And then also the identity of being gay in this city at that time was really, really sobering in this. It's scary, it's not comfortable, it's not cute. And that was like, yeah, it's something I know about, obviously, but reading it here is just really interesting. I read a lot of stories about gay men in this era, but I've never read one where it's set in Montreal, um, a city that I know and love and am so familiar with. They talk about like a bar that I was like, why are you going there? And so, yeah, that was really, really crazy to me. It was very cool. Um, I can only imagine that that's what it feels like when you are living in New York and you're watching something that is set in New York and you're like, oh, that's like my bodega. Um, but yeah, really great, well written. What else do I have to say? I don't know. It was like it tugged at my heartstrings. It did all the right things. I think it says something really interesting um, about Montreal as a city and about queer identities, and I really enjoyed it. Those are the 8 books that I read in the month of August. I'm so excited for fall reading. I can hardly wait. There's so many things on my bedside table that I am like dying to dig into, and I don't know what I'm gonna pick next. I would love to know what you read in August and loved, so let me know in the comments. I'm always looking for suggestions, and if you have any suggestions for like perfect fall reads, I've read the ones that you're thinking of, so think of like the second one. Do you know what I mean? I would love to hear it. So please let me know for that as well. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.